Hello everyone, my name's Writze. I'm a certified professional dog trainer, and today we're going to talk a little bit about puppy discipline. So obviously our puppies are going to do things that we would consider misbehavior, right? They don't know how to live in our world. So it's important that we understand how we can appropriately help discipline them or set the appropriate guidelines. To do that, we first have to talk about the 4 quadrants of modifying behavior in dogs. And those are what we'll use to kind of base our discussion of appropriate discipline on. So, puppies, come here. Let's not play with the squeaky toy. Come here. I got treats. I do. For the good puppies that, this one. Sit. Windy up. And Hobbs up. Thank you. That's a good plan. So what I just did right here when one of my dogs went to grab a squeaky toy is redirect them with positive reinforcement. I called them back over, asked them to do something more appropriate for the moment, and added a treat as a reward. So the 4 quadrants are positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. And positive and negative in this case, they don't apply as in like good versus bad. They're more like math terms. Are we adding something or are we taking something away? Punishment means a behavior is less likely to occur in the future, and reinforcement means a behavior is more likely to occur in the future. So if we put those all together, positive reinforcement, again, is adding something to increase the likelihood a behavior will occur again in the future. I'm adding treats to increase the likelihood of my dogs sitting nicely on platforms while I record these videos. Positive punishment would be adding something to stop or reduce the likelihood of a behavior occurring again in the future. So in the example of one of my dogs going and grabbing a squeaky toy, if I wanted to use positive punishment, I could have yelled at them, added something to the situation to make them less likely to do that in the future. But I don't want to do that with my dog's playing with squeaky toys, right? They can play with them a lot of the time, just not right at this moment. Other examples of positive punishment often include like a correction collar. So correcting a dog on a prong collar for reacting to another dog on leash, that kind of stuff. Negative reinforcement is taking something away as a reward. And in order for us to take something away and have it be a reward, there had to be something there that the dog didn't like in the first place to give them that feeling of relief. Typically what I see is if we're pulling up on a correction collar until the dog sits and then we're letting go, we're applying constant stim on an e-collar until the dog complies, and then we release that pressure. So negative reinforcement still involves something aversive to the dogs. And then we have negative punishment, and that means we're taking something away as a punisher. So my dog jumps on me and I cross my arms, turn my back, take away all of my attention to decrease the likelihood that my dog does that again in the future. Because again, punishment means we're just decreasing the likelihood of a behavior. And negative punishment can be a really great way to sometimes get across, a little bit of clarity for your dog without using a harmful aversive. And the reason that we really want to focus on positive reinforcement, negative punishment when applicable, and try and stay away from positive punishment and negative reinforcement as much as we can is because those can come with fallout. So not only can dogs associate things incorrectly, for example, if I were to correct my dog on a correction collar for seeing other dogs, instead of associating the fact that they pulled on the leash to go see the other dog and pulling on the leash isn't what I want, they can say, wow, every time I try and see another dog, my neck's uncomfortable, and now I'm going to get stressed out about other dogs. So we don't want that, right? We want the dogs to associate things the way we want them to, and unfortunately we can't always dive inside their brain and make that happen. So we always have that risk anytime we're using a punisher like that. Otherwise, we can also risk a dog being shut down. And what that looks like is a dog that stops offering any behaviors. A dog that simply just lays there and exists because trying everything else is scary. It can be called a shutdown dog that's experiencing learned helplessness, and a lot of times people see those dogs and they associate them with being a good, calm dog because they're just laying there. But when you look closer at their body language, you can see that they're actually just too terrified to do anything else. Leaving their owner's side gets them a correction every time, so they're just not going to do anything. And those dogs don't live a very fulfilling life. They live a constant anxiety state because they're worried about what's going to come next. So because of those risks of the fallout with punishment, especially, some harsh aversives, we really want to try and focus on disciplining our puppy in an appropriate way that does not involve the use of harsh aversives, but still gets across the point that we don't want them to do something that they're doing, right? And there's a couple different ways we can do that. One, anytime your dog is doing something that you don't want, take a moment to evaluate the situation and think about that as feedback for how you can better evaluate that situation or better set them up for that situation in the future. So the fact that Wendy went and grabbed a toy and was going to run and squeak with it, I could take that a couple different ways. I could say, okay, before I record these videos, he needs some more one-on-one attention, so his needs are met, and he's not going to feel the need to go grab a toy and play with himself. I could also just have picked up the toys. I think I dropped that one for you. It's right here. So that instead of having a toy 20 feet away for him to grab, I could have just taken away the option to grab a toy. And then third, I could have also started out rewarding him for staying in place to give him a better idea of what I wanted here. None of those needed punishment in that situation, right? Like all I needed to do is redirect him, say, actually, I would like you to come back here and hang out so that I know you're not going to run around and grab a squeaky toy and, distract everybody's dogs with the squeaky toy as they're watching this video. And that was enough kind of discipline, right? That's technically our discipline for the moment, is just redirecting him to a more appropriate activity. If you do need to use discipline with your puppies, it's going to be discipline like taking away access to something, putting them in a different space. A lot of times if our puppies are doing quote unquote bad behaviors, it's because they're tired, they're overstimulated, and they need a break. So neutrally putting them in a kennel, putting them in a pen, just walking out of the room, shutting the door behind if they're biting at you, trading them something else, are all the kinds of discipline that you should focus on, trying to use in that situation with your puppies. Long story short, positive is not permissive. Training your dog with positive reinforcement does not have to mean you allow bad behaviors. It simply means that you need to take a step back and evaluate your training and evaluate your situation. Is there something you can do to modify the situation in the future? If your puppy jumped on the counter, could you keep stuff further back on the counter and get your puppy out of the kitchen so they don't practice those behaviors? If your puppy does something like steals something, can you just trade them? Here's a treat, I'll take my sock back, and then I'll keep my socks in a better place. And if your puppy is biting and being very overtired and overstimulated, can you simply trade them a more appropriate chew toy or offer them, a calm, neutral nap in a kennel, that kind of stuff. So instead of focusing on how you should punish your puppy, focus on how you can set your puppy up for success in the future, how you can make things more clear for them in the future, because again, positive is not permissive. We still want to set the dog up for good success, and we can take that feedback into account, and then in the moment just redirecting them to a more appropriate activity, and sometimes just removing their access to the thing that is causing problems. For more tips and tricks, you can check us out at houndgames.com, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks.